Here we go. So welcome again to today's workshop, and our objectives today are to understand some best practices for doing research online, as well as to learn some places that you can go to find primary sources online. We're doing this in the context of New York City History Day 2021. You can find out more at this link, which I will try to just drop in the chat. There we go. And I want to just highlight a few things to know for New York City History Day 2021. So first of all, registration opens this coming Monday, January 25th, and will close on March 2nd. The entire contest this year is virtual. Projects must be submitted online by the registration deadline. So students will have the opportunity to upload your project as part of the registration process. And the link that I just shared in the chat is actually a site that we will go and explore together a little bit more later on today. But full instructions for creating and submitting virtual projects, as well as all these other details I've just mentioned, are available on that website. If you would like to stay in the loop, you can fill out our contact form. And let me also copy, see if I can copy that, or I'll just type it in the chat. You can fill out our contact form if you haven't already to make sure you get updates, and that will include updates when registration goes live and all that kind of good info. But tracking back to today's objectives, we want to think about best practices for doing research online because this year's contest is virtual and so much of our research this year is virtual. We also want to think about places to go to find primary sources online because such a big component of the National History Day project is making sure to involve primary sources. So we have a strategy for online research and for finding primary sources online that I'm going to talk us all through today. It's a four-part strategy. So first, we use a pre-research game plan to organize our goals and our strategies. Second, we make use of keywords. Third, we think about the best place to do our research online, and we perform our searches in websites or databases that are suited to our research. And then fourth, finally, we evaluate our search results. So step one, we make a pre-research game plan. What is a pre-research game plan? It orients us to what we want to get out of our research so that we don't just spend all of our research time searching aimlessly. So to start with, we need to think about what our research topic is. As an example, I might say that my research topic is transportation in Brooklyn. Now, I want to note that National History Day requires students to pick a topic and research that topic in a way that is in line with the contest theme. This year's theme for 2021 is communication in history. I very intentionally today picked a topic that doesn't have a lot to do with the theme because I don't want to give anyone, a leg up if I happen to pick a topic that's their topic and make other students feel like I didn't support them as much. We're gonna pick a topic that's not related to the theme because we're practicing skills that are universal to any research topic. So first we have our topic. My topic is transportation in Brooklyn. And then we think of 3 to 5 questions that you have about your topic. What do you want to know? And this is a part where I like to highlight that even if you may have the exact same topic as many of your classmates, this moment of thinking of the questions you have about your topic is where you get to really direct your research in a way that interests you. Because research should always be interesting to each of us. So when I sat down to think, what are 3 to 5 questions I have about my topic? I was thinking about transportation in Brooklyn because over here at the Center for Brooklyn History, I basically think about Brooklyn history all the time. And so my questions related a lot to my interest in Brooklyn history. I was thinking, how old is the subway in Brooklyn? Who built the subway in Brooklyn? And what is the impact of public transit on neighborhoods? All right. When I have my questions, when I feel good about my questions, the next thing I do is I make some keywords. But this is where I just want to stop and make sure that we are all on the same page about what keywords are. So keywords, I like to think about keywords as vocabulary words or search terms related to my topic. These will often be names, dates, places, events, or other significant terms. Most of the time, they'll be nouns, not always. We might see, I might find some keywords that are not nouns. But let's take a look at our questions and work on pulling out important keywords. I want to also talk before we make our keywords about why we use keywords. We've already made questions, and Google will actually let us type an entire question into the search box. It then parses out our keywords. Google is doing some work behind the scenes that we don't see. It's looking at my research question and saying, what are the nouns? What are the most important words here? And using those for my search. But databases, more on what they are in a moment, are usually the best place to find primary sources, and they won't always do this. They won't always pull out keywords on our behalf. And keywords may be our only way to search databases. So using keywords is really critical when we're searching databases. Using keywords will also give us even more control when we do a Google search. So let's look back at our questions and find some keywords. My questions again, how old is the subway? Who built the subway in Brooklyn? What's the impact of public transit on neighborhoods? So some important keywords. Well, obviously, I need Brooklyn. Subway, I'm thinking a lot about the subway. And I might use like construction or built. I might think more broadly than the subway and think about public transit. I might use the word impact. I actually didn't put the word neighborhood as a keyword, but that might end up being a good keyword. Often as we do a search online, we think of new keywords and we add to them. So once we have our questions, we have our keywords, our next step is to think about the best place to do our research. And we can do research online in search engines or databases. So what's the difference? I often think about the difference between search engines and databases in the way that I think about grocery shopping. So a search engine would be something like Google. Google is often the most used search engine these days, but there are other search engines like Yahoo or DuckDuckGo. And a search engine gives us a way to search material from all over the internet. Just like when I go to the grocery store, I mean, my local grocery store doesn't have absolutely everything, but it has a lot of things. It has much more than I need. My local grocery store may sometimes be a little overwhelming for my needs, just like Google may at times be a little overwhelming in terms of giving me much more than I need. On the other hand, a database, there we go. A database focuses on resources that are useful to a specific task. So, for example, if I'm just making a salad, I might go to my local fruit and veggie stand. Or especially actually because I know that their fruit and veggies are much better than the fruit and veggies at my grocery store. Or similarly, if I want to cook fish, I would go to my local fish guy because his fish is much better than the fish at my grocery store. So if I need to do a shopping trip where I need everything, where I need a ton of different resources, I just want to see what's out there, go to the grocery store. If I need a really specific thing, I go to some specialty vendor. Search engines and databases are much the same. And I'm going to pull up an example on my screen just now by navigating to another tab here. And we'll take a look at a database that tells us right on the screen what's in it. So this tells me right on the front of the database, it's the digital collections from Brooklyn Public Library that can help me discover Brooklyn history. I can explore a collection of digitized Brooklyn content. So clearly this does not have as many primary sources as there might be hidden somewhere on Google, but also it's directing me specifically to what I need for my task. And that might be the most useful thing for my own research. So when I think about where I go to do my research, I need to decide on a case-by-case basis. A search engine like Google will really have something for everyone, but it might take more work to find it. A database might have just the things you need, and sometimes it will take you directly to even better things than Google would find. So you may not want to use Google because you might find more material than you can appropriately navigate, and you might come across inappropriate material. On the flip side, you may decide you want to use Google if there isn't a database that's appropriate to your research. Or if you really want to learn some skills for navigating a list of Google search results and determining which ones are best suited to your questions. There are great moments for using Google, but there are also moments when we really should use a database. So this step 3 was to figure out our best place to go for resources and to pick a database that would work well for our research. And let's just remind ourselves, my questions are: how old is the subway in Brooklyn? Who built the subway in Brooklyn? And what is the impact of public transit on neighborhoods? So my keywords were Brooklyn, subway, built or construction, public transit, and impact. And we're going to go over to this New York City History Day website. I'll put the link in the chat again, but you all can also just watch my screen here we go. I've got that link in the chat, but you can watch my screen while I navigate over to this website. So this is the resource page that we have put together for New York City History Day. And if I go over specifically to resources for students, I'll highlight a few things up here at the top. We have links to the National History Day rulebook and information about this year's theme. We also have some really important instructions for crafting a virtual project. So you'll want to read these to understand how to create and submit a project for this year's virtual contest. But then we have this great section on finding primary sources online to support your research. So my project specifically was thinking about Brooklyn and maybe greater New York City history, and also thinking about public transit history. And you can see that the primary sources on this page are divided up. There's New York City libraries and historical societies. There's databases that are great for New York history, databases that are great for American history, great for international topics, great for art and music research projects, for natural history, science, and STEM, and for sports history. Some of these actually cover completely other topics as well. So if your topic doesn't fall exactly into one of those buckets, you might just peruse the list still and see what might be relevant to you. But I'm thinking right at the top, okay, wait a minute. I'm looking at Brooklyn history. I'm going to look at some Brooklyn material. So let's check out the Brooklyn Center for History digital collections. And I can just click on that. And when I get to this page, I want to choose keyword search because I have some keywords ready to go. Now, if I just search for subway, let's see what happens. The search is thinking away. So I have 116 results here. That might be fine. I look at these results and I see something about someone removing the first stone, probably related to building the subway, something about City Hall Station. Some of these things are newer. I can see things related to the Gowanus Canal there. I see things, related to COVID-19 because we've been doing some great collecting projects. And so this is a subway shutdown notice. But that doesn't answer my question about like when the subway was built, who built the subway. So I might want to add a second keyword. And in a database like this, I want to use a word like and to say, hey, I want you to find me things that have both subway and construction. So let's do a search for that. And now I have 10 results. This is probably a lot more specific. If I hadn't used that word "and," the database is actually assuming that I'm finding things with subway, that I want things with subway or construction. And that gives me 420 things. That's more than I want to look through. And they're like, some of them are just about construction. Some of them are just about the subway. So let's go back to these 10 results for subway and construction. And I have something right here. I can click on one of my results when it looks relevant, and I'll double check. Oh, what is this? This is something related to the old subway under Broadway near City Hall. And I might decide that this is a primary source that I want to use in my research. I can actually click on this to see it a little larger. And I have all the information that I need for my citation right here on the results page. But let's try a different database quickly to see what we find. Let's look at that Brooklyn Public Library digital collections that we saw briefly before, and I'm going to do the exact same thing of subway and construction. So here, I still have 353 results in this database for subway and construction. So I've got a lot of material, and if I scroll through it, I see some things look like maps. Some of them are photographs showing construction. And again, if I decide that I want to learn more about one of these, I would just click on it and I go through to the results page. Here, I actually have an option to download a JPEG of the image. So I have that right away to use in my project. And again, I have all the information about the citation. So it says that this is the construction of Cadman Plaza in downtown Brooklyn. And I can see that there's work around the subway there as well. And this is from 1936. So this might help me with some of my questions around when construction was happening related to the subway. So we've seen that every database is going to give us different things, and I might continue looking at other databases, expanding out. There's some collections listed here from the New York Transit Museum, which are also obviously going to be pretty relevant to my research. I'll want to use the keyword Brooklyn there because that's not just a Brooklyn database. But I could see what they have. And then I might expand my search out even further and use a database like Chronicling America, which has digitized newspapers from across the country, but it might still give me information about transportation and transportation construction here in Brooklyn. And the last thing that I want to highlight is our fourth step of evaluating our sources. So we actually have a really great website assessment checklist. Maybe I'll just go straight over to that and I'll share the link to that in the chat for all of you. Here we go. But I'm going to pull that up on my screen. Here we go. So our final thing to do is to evaluate the material we've found. And I'm sure that different teachers and librarians you've worked with have all had great strategies for evaluating sources. There are some great systems for this. The one that we usually use is just this checklist. And so we talk through what clues the URL gives. And, you know, is it created by a company, a government, an educational institution, a nonprofit, or a government? And then how can that help us figure out the purpose of this website? So for example, when I looked at the digital collections from the Center for Brooklyn History, that seems like it's an educational or research website. It doesn't seem like it's for entertainment or advertisement or online shopping. And then I want to think, is this website mostly facts, mostly opinions, or a mix of both? That's especially useful when I'm not working in a database, but when I'm doing a Google search. I want to think about whether we can identify the author on whether the author is a person or an organization, and whether we can find out anything about their qualifications or expertise. So is this a website created by someone who is a fan of the Brooklyn subway system, or by a research institution that's based in Brooklyn and has material about the subway? And it's important to reflect on what makes the author credible. But after we finish all of this, we have this other rating chart that is really important for connecting the resources you've found to your topic and your research questions. So does the website answer your research question? It might not. It might be related to your topic, but it still might not answer your questions. Is the information up to date? Sometimes with history, that's less critical, because history changes a bit in the way the things we learn about it, but overall, many of the informational records we have in primary sources stay the same. But it's important to check, is the website really old? Has it been kept up to date? Is it sending you to dead links? And that relates to the question of, is it well maintained? And does it look professional? Which ties back to our evaluation of whether the author seems to be credible. And then, is it objective and unbiased? It gives facts and not opinions. So you may actually decide that many of these answers are yes, but it might not answer your research question. And in that case, the primary sources that you found aren't necessarily the best ones for your project. And you want to think, should I revisit my keywords? Should I try different keywords in the same databases? Or should I don't know, maybe try an entirely different set of search questions altogether? Those are things to think about as we evaluate here and think about whether it answers your questions. So that wraps up the majority of my presentation here. I'm going to take some questions in a moment, but before we go, I wanted to highlight a couple of upcoming things. And I'll put links to this in the chat in just a moment, but we have another one of these workshops coming up next Thursday, again at 4 p.m. Eastern time, on creating an annotated bibliography. So feel free to sign up and invite your friends. I'll put the link to that in the chat in just a moment. And I also am going to share a link to this upcoming webinar with Kenneth Davis, author of More Deadly Than War. He wrote lessons from he's going to be speaking about lessons from pandemics past, what the Spanish flu can teach us, based on this book, More Deadly Than War. So I'm going to stop my screen sharing, and I'm going to put links to register for those into the chat. But please feel free to also share any other questions you have in the chat, and we'll get to those in just a moment. And I want to say a huge thank you to everyone for coming today.